Hello everyone, Dr. Alan Mandell here. Welcome back to my channel, Science of Healing. If you're a woman over 50 and you've noticed your hair becoming thinner, weaker, or falling out more than it used to, let me tell you something important right now. This is not just aging, and it's not inevitable. Your hair follicles are alive. They respond to blood flow, hormones, minerals, inflammation, and, most importantly, what you eat every single day. Today, we're talking about nuts. Some nuts can reactivate dormant hair follicles, improve scalp circulation, and support estrogen balance after menopause. But others, especially when eaten the wrong way, can trigger inflammation, hormone disruption, and nutrient depletion, leading to increased hair fall. Hair loss after 50 is not a punishment of time, and it is not something your body is designed to surrender to without a fight. Yet millions of women are quietly watching their hair thin, shed, and disappear while being told it is normal aging, even though science tells a very different story, because hair follicles are not dead tissue. They are living organs with blood supply, nerve signaling, hormone receptors, and stem cells that remain active well into old age. And what truly changes after menopause is not your ability to grow hair, but the internal environment that either nourishes or starves those follicles. As estrogen declines, scalp blood flow drops by as much as 30%, collagen production slows, antioxidant defenses weaken, and inflammation quietly rises, creating the perfect storm where hair spends less time growing and more time shedding, a shift known in medical research as a shortened anagen phase. And studies have shown that when hair follicles are exposed to oxidative stress and nutrient deficiency, they literally shrink, producing thinner, weaker strands until growth eventually stalls. But here is the shocking part most women are never told. These same follicles can re-expand when the internal conditions improve, because follicle stem cells do not vanish with age, they go dormant, and dormancy is reversible, which is why nutrition plays such a powerful role, because food directly controls blood sugar, insulin, inflammation, thyroid hormones, and mineral availability, all of which determine whether a follicle stays asleep or wakes up. And research from dermatology journals has repeatedly shown that deficiencies in vitamin E, zinc, selenium, magnesium, and omega-3 fats are strongly associated with hair thinning in postmenopausal women, not because hair is cosmetic, but because hair is one of the first tissues to be sacrificed when the body senses stress or imbalance, making it an early warning signal rather than a lost cause. And when women are told to accept hair loss as inevitable, they are being robbed of the truth that their body is still responsive, still adaptive, and still capable of repair, because inflammation, not age, is what quietly suffocates hair follicles. And chronic low-grade inflammation increases with poor dietary fats, blood sugar spikes, and liver overload, all of which interfere with estrogen metabolism and scalp circulation. And this is why two women of the same age can have dramatically different hair density, because one has an internal environment that supports follicle survival while the other unknowingly feeds the conditions that shut it down. And scientific imaging of the scalp has shown that when circulation improves, follicles receive more oxygen and glucose, growth signals increase, and dormant follicles can re-enter the growth phase within months, which is why foods rich in antioxidants and healthy fats are not optional after 50, they are biological tools. Because vitamin E protects follicle cell membranes from oxidative damage, omega-3 fats reduce inflammatory cytokines that trigger hair shedding. Zinc regulates oil glands and keratin synthesis, and selenium supports thyroid hormone conversion, a process so critical that even mild thyroid dysfunction can double the risk of diffuse hair loss in older women. Yet many women are never diagnosed because their labs appear normal, even while their follicles are starving at the cellular level. And this is why the myth of aging hair loss is so dangerous, because it discourages intervention at the exact moment the body needs support. And when hair follicles are deprived of nutrients, they enter a survival mode where growth is shut down to conserve energy. But when nutrients are restored consistently, follicles receive the signal that the environment is safe again, allowing regeneration to begin. And studies on dietary interventions have shown measurable improvements in hair density, thickness, and shedding rates within 6 to 12 months, not because of miracle cures, but because biology responds to consistency. And this is the part no one wants to hear, that hair regrowth after 50 is slow, deliberate, and dependent on daily choices, not overnight fixes. And the reason supplements and products often fail is because they attempt to override biology instead of restoring it, while food works upstream, correcting the internal imbalances that caused the problem in the first place. And when women shift from processed inflammatory foods to nutrient-dense, hormone-supportive ones, markers of oxidative stress decline, insulin sensitivity improves, scalp blood flow increases, and hair follicles are once again supplied with what they need to grow. And this is why hair loss should never be dismissed as cosmetic, because it reflects what is happening internally in the liver, the thyroid, the gut, and the circulatory system. And when these systems are supported, hair follows not as a vanity benefit, but as a sign of recovery. And perhaps the most empowering truth of all is that the body does not forget how to grow hair. It simply responds to signals, and when the signals change, the outcome changes. And aging does not erase the blueprint for hair growth. It only demands better care, more precision, and more respect for the biological shifts that occur after menopause. And once women understand that their hair loss is not fate, but feedback, everything changes, because feedback can be acted on, reversed, and transformed. And the moment you stop accepting hair loss as normal, you open the door to giving your body what it has been asking for all along. Certain nuts have the power to awaken hair follicles that have gone silent for years, while others quietly sabotage them. And this isn't folklore or trend-driven nutrition. It's biochemistry unfolding at the scalp level, because every hair follicle is a hormone-sensitive, blood-dependent microorgan that responds instantly to what enters your bloodstream. And after the age of 50, when estrogen declines and insulin resistance quietly rises, the margin for nutritional error becomes dangerously small, meaning the difference between hair regrowth and hair loss can come down to a single daily food choice. And nuts sit at the center of this divide because they are concentrated sources of fats, minerals, and plant compounds that either reduce inflammation and restore circulation or ignite oxidative stress and hormonal chaos. And studies in trichology show that follicles deprived of zinc, selenium, and omega-3 fatty acids enter a prolonged resting phase, shedding hair prematurely, in a process called telogen effluvium. Yet when these same nutrients are restored through whole foods, dormant follicles can re-enter the growth phase, increasing density and strand thickness over time, which is why almonds, walnuts, pumpkin seeds, and Brazil nuts are not just snacks but biological signals, because almonds deliver vitamin E that stabilizes follicle cell membranes and improves scalp microcirculation, a factor shown in clinical research to directly correlate with hair shaft diameter, while walnuts supply alpha-linolenic acid, an omega-3 fat that reduces inflammatory prostaglandins responsible for follicle miniaturization, a process that accelerates after menopause. And pumpkin seeds provide zinc that regulates 5-alpha reductase activity, the enzyme that converts testosterone into DHT, a hormone capable of shrinking hair follicles even in women. And this is not speculation. Randomized studies have shown reduced hair shedding in individuals consuming zinc-rich foods consistently, while Brazil nuts supply selenium in a form the body uses immediately for thyroid hormone activation. And thyroid hormones are so tightly linked to hair growth that even subclinical hypothyroidism doubles the risk of diffuse thinning in women over 50. Yet here's where the story turns dark, because the same category of foods can become silent destroyers when consumed carelessly. as peanuts, despite their popularity, are one of the most common dietary sources of aflatoxins, mold-derived toxins that burden the liver, and the liver is responsible for clearing excess estrogen and converting inactive hormones into usable forms. So when liver detox pathways are overwhelmed, estrogen metabolites accumulate, disrupting the delicate hormonal balance that hair follicles rely on. And cashews, often marketed as healthy, are unusually high in carbohydrates compared to other nuts, meaning they spike blood sugar and insulin, and elevated insulin levels increase. Androgen activity, which in turn accelerates follicle shrinkage, a mechanism well documented in endocrinology literature, while excessive intake of Brazil nuts crosses the line from therapeutic to toxic, because selenium has a narrow safety window, and chronic overconsumption triggers hair loss, brittle nails, and neurological symptoms, a condition known as selenosis that is rarely discussed outside medical journals. And then there are roasted, salted, packaged mixed nuts, cooked in industrial seed oils at high temperatures, creating oxidized fats that increase systemic inflammation, and inflammation restricts scalp blood flow by stiffening blood vessels, effectively starving follicles of oxygen, and imaging studies of the scalp show that reduced perfusion is one of the strongest predictors of follicle dormancy. Yet this damage doesn't announce itself immediately. It accumulates silently, one handful at a time, which is why so many women believe they are doing everything right, while unknowingly feeding the very processes that cause their hair to fall. And the most shocking truth is that hair follicles respond faster to nutritional correction than skin or nails because hair is metabolically active. And when the internal environment improves, growth signals like IGF-1 and VEGF increase around the follicle, promoting vascularization and cell division. But when the environment is hostile, follicles shut down growth to conserve energy, a survival response that has nothing to do with vanity and everything to do with biology. And this is why two women can eat nuts daily with opposite outcomes, because preparation, quantity, and context determine whether nuts act as medicine or poison. Soaked almonds improve mineral absorption, while dry roasted ones inflame. One Brazil nut nourishes the thyroid, while 5 sabotage it. Pumpkin seeds stabilize hormones, while peanut butter loaded with refined oils destabilizes them. And this is not about fear, it's about precision, because the body after 50 demands smarter inputs, not more. And research consistently shows that nutrient density matters more than calorie count for hair health, meaning a small amount of the right nut can outperform bowls of the wrong one. And when women align their diets with their biology instead of marketing labels, hair loss slows, shedding decreases, and regrowth becomes possible. Not dramatic overnight miracles, but measurable, visible improvement over months, because hair grows slowly by design, yet responds faithfully to consistency. And the tragedy is that most women are never told this. They are sold shampoos, supplements, and false reassurance instead of education, while the real leverage point sits quietly on their plate. And when you understand that nuts are not neutral foods but hormonal signals, everything changes, because every bite either tells your follicles to grow or prepares them to let go. And once that realization lands, hair loss stops being mysterious and becomes something you can finally influence, deliberately, intelligently, and on your own terms. Dose and preparation are the invisible line between healing and harm. And nowhere is this more evident than with foods people believe are automatically healthy, because the human body does not respond to labels or intentions. It responds to chemistry, timing, and quantity. And after the age of 50, that margin of safety narrows dramatically, meaning foods that once seemed harmless can quietly become biological stressors. And nuts are the perfect example, because they are among the most nutrient-dense foods on Earth, yet also among the easiest to misuse. And research in nutritional science has repeatedly shown that micronutrients follow a U-shaped curve, where deficiency causes damage, adequacy restores function, and excess becomes toxic, and hair follicles sit directly on this curve, reacting quickly to both scarcity and overload, which is why one Brazil nut can support thyroid-driven hair growth, while a handful consumed daily can trigger hair shedding so severe it mimics chemotherapy-related loss, a phenomenon documented in cases of selenium toxicity known as selenosis, where excess selenium disrupts keratin structure and forces hair into premature shedding. And this is not rare or theoretical. It appears in medical literature precisely because people assume natural means unlimited. But the body keeps score, and preparation matters just as much as dose, because raw nuts contain enzyme inhibitors like phytic acid that bind minerals such as zinc, iron, and magnesium, preventing their absorption, meaning a woman can eat nuts daily and still be functionally deficient at the follicle level. And studies show that soaking nuts significantly reduces phytic acid, increasing mineral bioavailability by up to 50%, which directly affects hair growth, because zinc is required for DNA synthesis in follicle cells and magnesium supports cellular energy production. And without energy, follicles shut down growth to survive. Yet most people never soak their nuts, instead consuming them dry roasted, salted, and oxidized. And heat changes everything, because high temperature roasting damages delicate polyunsaturated fats, converting them into inflammatory compounds that increase oxidative stress markers in the blood. And oxidative stress is one of the strongest predictors of hair follicle miniaturization, as shown in scalp biopsies where inflamed follicles produce thinner, weaker hairs before eventually stopping altogether. And sodium adds another layer of harm, because excess salt constricts blood vessels, reducing scalp circulation. And hair follicles depend on consistent blood flow to remain in the growth phase, which is why even mild dehydration or vascular stiffness can increase shedding. And this is where the shocking truth emerges, that many women are unknowingly creating a hostile environment for their hair while believing they are nourishing it, because the difference between raw, soaked almonds and honey, roasted almonds cooked in seed oils, is not subtle at the cellular level. One feeds antioxidant defenses and improves circulation. The other promotes inflammation and insulin spikes. And insulin is not just a blood sugar hormone. It is a growth signal that, when elevated chronically, increases androgen activity, worsening hair thinning in women after menopause, a connection well established in endocrinology research. And portion size amplifies all of this, because nuts are calorically dense and excess intake pushes the body toward metabolic stress, increasing insulin, burdening the liver, and altering lipid profiles, all of which influence hormone metabolism. And the liver's role in hair health is rarely discussed, yet it is critical, because the liver processes estrogen, thyroid hormones, and toxins, and when overwhelmed, hormone balance suffers, sending confusing signals to hair follicles that result in shedding. And this is why mindless snacking is so dangerous after 50. Because the body no longer compensates the way it once did, and hair follicles are among the first tissues to reflect that imbalance. Yet the most overlooked factor of all is consistency, because hair grows slowly at roughly ½ an inch per month, meaning the follicles you nourish today will not reveal their response for months. And this delay leads many women to abandon good habits prematurely, or to overcorrect increasing doses in frustration, not realizing they are crossing from therapeutic into harmful territory. And clinical nutrition studies consistently show that moderate, consistent intake outperforms aggressive short-term intervention for hair regrowth, because follicles require stable signals, not spikes. And this is why food works differently than supplements, because food delivers nutrients in balanced ratios, while supplements often isolate compounds beyond what follicles can safely use. And when women stack supplements on top of nutrient-dense foods without understanding total intake, toxicity becomes a real risk and hair loss follows, silently, gradually and confusingly. And the tragedy is that when this happens, women often blame aging again, not realizing they have accidentally sabotaged their own progress. And the science is clear that preparation methods like soaking, low heat roasting, and pairing nuts with protein and fiber stabilize blood sugar, improve absorption, and reduce inflammatory responses, while eating nuts alone in large quantities late at night or alongside refined carbohydrates amplifies insulin and cortisol, two hormones that directly interfere with hair growth cycles. And cortisol deserves special attention because chronic stress hormones push hair follicles into the resting phase, a survival mechanism that prioritizes vital organs over cosmetic tissues. And poor dietary choices act as physiological stressors, even when emotional stress feels low. And this is why hair loss often accelerates during periods of dietary experimentation or restriction, because the body perceives instability, and stability is what hair follicles crave. And perhaps the most empowering truth is that hair regrowth after 50 is not about adding more and more superfoods. It is about precision, restraint, and respect for the body's limits, because biology does not reward excess, it rewards balance. And when women learn that 1 tablespoon of pumpkin seeds daily can stabilize hormones, while half a cup can disrupt digestion and mineral balance, or that 1 Brazil nut can support the thyroid, while several can shut it down, they begin to understand that food is information, not just fuel, and every meal sends instructions to the body, including the scalp. And when those instructions are clear, consistent, and appropriate, hair follicles respond not with miracles, but with resilience, thicker strands, reduced shedding, and renewed growth over time. And this is why dose and preparation are not small details. They are the difference between feeding your hair and slowly forcing it to let go. And once you grasp that truth, you stop chasing products and start working with your biology. And that is when real, lasting change finally begins.